Welcome and welcome back. I'm Chaz, and you're on the CHAZTIIIZED YouTube channel. I appreciate you guys for popping in. And as you can see with the formatting on the screen, that's a screenshot from one of the most viral debates going on in the Manosphere as of late. It's a debate hosted on the Digital Social Hour podcast by Sean Kelly. Shout out to him. His channel is popping, so he doesn't need that much promo. And the gentleman on the left is Andrew Wilson, and the gentleman on the right is Coach Greg Adams. I would like you guys to go check out that video on your own without my opinion or anyone else's opinion, and let me know what your thoughts are. Essentially, I wanted to provide an unbiased and objective overview on this debate. Essentially, is marriage worth it? Was the topic that was supposed to be discussed, but I can give you a quick recap if you have not seen it. So in short, it was supposed to be a long form debate on the topic of whether marriage is or is not worth it between Coach Greg Adams and Andrew Wilson. And it took place, like I said, on the DSH podcast by Sean Kelly. And the discussion was supposed to frame whether marriage had any personal risk calculation and if it was a cultural problem. But then it later moved on to a political and strategical positioning with a lot of attacks upon character and motive and intent that was either disclosed or not disclosed in the meeting. And I believe that is what has made it so viral, is that after this has gone, there was a lot of celebration on one side and there was a lot of attacks from the other. But in short, to summarize, I can give you a quick synopsis on their positions. One for Coach Greg Adams and one for Andrew Wilson. So CGA, if you're Coach Gang, he emphasized the individual risk management and personal agency associated with the risk with marriage. He provided lots of high risk in today's legal and social environment, and often, recommends people to go on their own path. MGTOW, if you're familiar with that acronym, as an alternative, and to live with extreme caution, knowing the insights. And then from the Crucible Gang, Andrew Wilson argued for changing culture and institutions over time to reduce systemic risk associated with marriage and to focus on reform and long-term cultural shifts rather than the immediate withdrawal from the thought of marriage in itself. And then they even represented this with two different polls on the podcast. Like I said, I highly recommend you guys to go check that out. But how did it escalate, and why is it so viral in the manosphere as of right now? So the original policy and strategy disagreement shifted into ad hominems. If you've seen it, critics label CGA stance as defeatist and aligned with the Go Your Own Way, or MGTOW acronym, resignation. While supporters of systemic reform accused Wilson of being unrealistic and idealistic, given the current incentives and institutions, not to mention that his past was somewhat exposed on this podcast. And CGA has been doing a great job of doing that, nonetheless, as well as Andrew still commenting and slinging mud from others' podcasts as well. So there's social amplification right now going on YouTube. If you just type in Coach CGA, or you type in Coach Greg Adams and versus Andrew Wilson, there's so many people reacting to it. Shout out to MTR, shout out to the Angry Man, shout out to so many others that are just really fanning the flames as of right now. And I'm kind of excited for it as a fan of all of this, as a young man with some insight and experience in these areas. It is nice to see. It is very emotionally driven in some areas, and it's very exciting nonetheless. But if I were to give a critique, I'd try to give an objective analysis that will help balance this out in any regard. So I've come up with a couple notes. I believe that there is some legitimate overlap. I do believe that both perspectives address the problems. I do feel that there is individual risk, obviously, with signing your name away in the legal court system. There's definitely financial and emotional risk as well. Trying to adhere to cultural norms, and there's so many institutional drivers as well. But treating them mutually exclusive is a false dichotomy. But there's short-term and long-term framing. So when it comes to Coach Gang, the council definitely prioritizes the short-term individual safeguarding. And, I feel like that's legitimate. Whereas the Crucible team, aka Andrew Wilson's gang, their prescription targets structural changes that it's going to take some time and some coalition building, so to speak. And it's going to take time to even get measurable effects. And I think that's why they butt heads so often, is that they were bringing up stats and trying to slice and dice different areas um, underneath the religious umbrella, and how it is certain groups thrive underneath some of these cultural norms and religious beliefs. And it just got too muddy. And I think that was coach's argument, was let's bring this back into a basis of reality, or even those that are not religious. You're really cutting out so much of the talking points. You're cutting out so much of the audience that's watching that may not even adhere to any of these ecclesiastical stances. No disrespect. So just going forward, if I were to provide any suggested talking points as a follow-up, just to keep this neutral and constructive, I would just acknowledge the concerns. What's the legalities? What are the financial and emotional risks that people raise about, the modern marriage, and validate the risk awareness as being rational, distinguish the levels in terms of the response. I mean, short-term personal risk mitigation, cool. Prenuptial agreements, financial transparency, stage commitments, versus long-term cultural and legal reforms, versus like the family court reform and child support policy and social norms. I mean, we can find a happy ground between Coach's short and Andrew's long term framing. But we have to be practical. Individuals cannot wait decades for cultural changes. I side with Coach in that. And I also side with Andrew's logic in terms of, he brought up the comparison about cigarettes and how cigarettes were once accepted culturally, and then it took a culture to eventually get us to stop doing these things. Call it out. Call it out. I agree with both sides in some regards, but I think we have to sit down. And I feel like the talk was only roughly 20 minutes. And then the rest was like an hour and 40 minutes of just ad hominems, trying to label each other with like defeatist mindsets or utopian mindsets. And, I really wish that it was structured. Nothing against Sean Kelly, but I wish this was more structured in a debate instead of a civil discourse, because this was really just two men getting their rocks off. And eventually at the end, I mean, you guys saw, it was just a bunch of slinging mud. I didn't really need to watch any much beyond after Coach said, let's bring this back into reality. I mean, he didn't have to use terms like Sky Daddy, but, hey, when Andrew started saying that, father has to come into the bedroom and tell, your counterpart that you need to be intimate with, that part kind of lost me. So anyways, I don't want to make this too long-winded, but I did want to give my piece and saying that, we can have a follow-up. I do feel like there needs to be better moderation for future debates, to set boundaries, to withdraw the character attacks, and keep this time limit. I mean, just keep them within like a 3 to 5 minute rebuttal, and then keep the polls going. I think as an active viewer, remaining unbiased, I enjoyed both sides, but I hate to see what this has turned into. And I'm gonna do a follow up on the next video. So if you're making it to the end right now, I'm going to be going over to Jake Rattlesnake's channel next and doing a review on the Andrew Wilson and Jake reveal the secrets of the debate. You did mention before. So I appreciate you guys' time. I'm Chaz. If you like this and you want to see more from me, if you like to see this type of commentary or this type of insight from someone, hey, let me know. Leave a comment. If you're Coach Gang, shout out to y'all. If you're from the Crucible, shout out to y'all. But again, I appreciate your time, and I just had to give my take on this. So thank you.